With Deadpool and Wolverine coming to theaters real soon, I thought now is a good time to revisit the first two films, starting with the first film, so let's review. Now, Deadpool is based on the beloved Marvel character. His powers are basically almost the same as Wolverine. You know, he can literally cut off a limb and it'll grow back, so he has the ability to heal. But the gag about him is he breaks the fourth wall. And in this film adaptation, he tries to go after the guy that pretty much screwed his whole skin and made him ugly and gave him the power so that he could reunite with his girlfriend. Now, Deadpool is one of those Marvel characters that I didn't know about until much later in life, particularly when the first Marvel Ultimate Alliance video game came out and that there's a character named Deadpool. I checked him out, I played as him, and I was like, oh, this is a cool character. And then we all know that abysmal representation of him in X-Men Origins Wolverine, where they sewed his mouth shut. Just shit. Complete, utter shit. To this day, I will never understand the creator's mindset when they wrote that. Like, he's the merc with the mouth, and you sew his mouth shut. Okay, I'm sorry. But regardless of that, everybody pretty much agreed that Ryan Reynolds would make a good Deadpool just from that first bit that we saw of him in the beginning of that movie. And for years and years and years, Ryan Reynolds was lobbying to get this movie made, but the studio didn't have that much faith in it until someone accidentally leaked some test footage of Deadpool, and it caught on like wildfire. Everybody wanted to see this, and the movie got made. They brought on Tim Miller to make this movie, and of course, Ryan Reynolds to reprise the role of Deadpool. And so the movie came out in 2016, and I remember it being one of my favorite films of 2016. And 8 years later, I still feel the same way. This movie is awesome on so many levels. I remember when the trailers came out, it had me hyped, and then I was not disappointed when I went to go see the movie during Valentine's Day of 2016, as the marketing made such a huge joke out of. And even from the opening scene where they were just making honest opening credits, you knew what kind of time this movie was on, because the meta jokes were there, but Ryan Reynolds, he absolutely shines as Deadpool, because one of the things about Ryan Reynolds is that he just has a self-aware sense of humor, which is perfect for Deadpool. And he bought it for the meta self-aware humor within this movie, right down to the X-Men jokes, to commenting on the state of superhero movies at that time.
Woo! Superhero landing! Yeah, that's really hard on your knees.
Commenting on movie tropes in general, and pop culture jokes. But at this movie's core, it's not just a cool superhero action film, but it's also a love story in which Deadpool, his real name is Wade Wilson, he's a mercenary for hire until he meets Vanessa, in which he falls in love with. They have a relationship that goes on for about a year until one day he finds out he has cancer, but he leaves her because he doesn't want to put her through that. But then he comes across some people that may be able to help him by turning him into a mutant, and that's where Ajax comes in, and he goes through some things to trigger Wade Wilson's mutation, and it does, and it turns him into a weird looking fella that has the ability to heal, can grow back limbs. But the whole origin story aspect of Deadpool, it did make sense in why Deadpool is the way he is, because Deadpool, he essentially just has voices in his head, and that's how he basically gets through things. And the fact that he simply just can't die is just how he copes with life. It's basically a coping mechanism for him. But like I said, this role was perfect for Ryan Reynolds. This is his franchise. This is his character. And Marina Picard, who plays Vanessa, she bounced right off of Ryan Reynolds, and they worked perfectly together. Beautiful woman. Ed Skrein, who plays Ajax, he was great here, and he had a great little rivalry with Deadpool. And I like the whole joke with him, his real name being Francis. And so every time I see a cleaning bottle of Ajax, I just pretend it's Francis. TJ Miller, who has dropped off the face of the earth over the past couple of years, I forgot he was in this movie, but he was funny here, and I thought he had some lines here and there that I thought were hilarious on a meta level.
Captain Deadpool. No, just Deadpool, yeah. To you, Mr. Poole. Deadpool. That sounds like a fucking franchise.
Gina Carano, who I have had mixed feelings about over the past couple of years, is in this movie, but she does work here, and she does have a moment of of somebody showing her chivalry, which I thought was hilarious. Leslie Uggams plays Blind Al in this movie. That's just funny in itself because I know this actress and I've known she's been in other things and she is a very respected actress, and the fact that she even took on this role is just downright hilarious to me. Dopinder, who has become a character in itself, was hilarious. Especially, I ain't gonna spoil nothing if you haven't seen it. Well, you probably have seen it, but the whole thing about him is he's trying to grab the attention of a woman he loves, and then she was stolen from somebody else, and so he took that same dude and locks him in the back of his truck and plans on doing some nefarious things with him, which Deadpool endorses, but Colossus pretty much reprimands Deadpool for suggesting that. Speaking of Colossus, you do get appearances from 2 X-Men in this movie that are not prominent in the mainline X-Men films, but you do get a different version of them, particularly Colossus, who, from what I remember in the other movies, is not really Russian, but here he is Russian, and he is full-on solid and a giant. But the thing that makes him hilarious in this movie is that he's a gentle giant. And it's just fun trying to be the goody two-shoes, trying to work with Deadpool, but Deadpool's just not having it. And then he has an X-Men in training named Negasonic Teenage Warhead, and she's just one of those typical moody teenage girls that's just done with life, and she just bored and doesn't want to be there, and which is fun for Deadpool to make fun of and comment on. The connections to the X-Men universe is also used to hilarity in this film, because you do get a shot of this movie of the school, which I swear to God they stole from the other X-Men movies. Deadpool, he goes to get them, and he's commenting on how every time he goes there, he only sees Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead there, and he says,
it's almost like the studio couldn't afford another X-Men.
Or even when Colossus is dragging him away, Colossus tells him that he's going to take Deadpool to the professor, and Deadpool says,
McAvoy or Stewart? These timelines are so confusing.
There's even a Stan Lee cameo in this movie that is probably one of my favorite Stan Lee cameos ever, because he is a strip club DJ. He even gives us some sick knowledge as a strip club DJ, where he says, "You can't buy love, but you'll get rented for $3. Great use of a good Stan Lee cameo. Rest in peace. But more importantly, I think the reason this movie still holds up is because you basically gave the fans what they asked for, and they showed out and they loved it. You stayed true to the lore of the Deadpool character. You gave it an R rating, which I hope is not the lesson that the studio took. I don't think they did though, but I'm saying the lesson to take away from Deadpool is not make it an R rating. It's just use the R rating for certain characters where it fits. And underneath all that, they still gave us a love story that works for this meta action film. Tim Miller did this character justice. Ryan Reynolds for sure did this character justice, almost to the point where I think every character he's played after this movie, he just applies Deadpool to every character, because like I said, Ryan Reynolds has a self-aware sense of humor, so he's just bring Deadpool onto every character he plays. Even if they don't overtly break the fourth wall, he always has one hand outside of the reality that he is a part of. Regardless, this movie just works for Ryan Reynolds. I remember at the time this was a huge win that the Fox Marvel brand needed, even to the point that not even Disney is gonna even try to do away with the R rating of the Deadpool. Even Disney has the brains to figure out, alright, no, we're not gonna Disneyfy Deadpool. I still love this movie. It's still one of my favorite comic book films. It's still one of my favorite X-Men films. And it still remains one of my favorite films of 2016. I'm gonna give Deadpool the hands up emoji because it is a masterpiece.